Well, faster, my good afternoon. Welcome along to Manx Radio's Mannin Line. It is Monday, 16th of March. Alex sitting in for Andy for another week. He'll be back next Monday. And despite the fact that the weather's a bit grey outside, tomorrow it's the start of the Manx Electric Railway services for 2026, which means it's a bit like when the CCAT starts, isn't it? It's the sign that summer is around the corner when the Heritage Railway starts, so that's something positive to look forward to. However, there's lots in the news. It's an open line through until 1. What would you like to talk about today? Give me a call. Early on will be good. 66 13 68. As I mentioned in the introduction there, breaking news this morning that the plans for the 12-storey multi-purpose development in Douglas have been given planning approval. This is the one that was recommended for refusal by the planning officers. However, the planning committee voted 4-2 in favour, 4 versus 2 against, of the development going ahead. Now, the chair of the planning committee is Rob Collister, MHK. He said during the hearing that he cannot support the Lord Street site remaining vacant any longer. Now, for the people who have been criticising the scale of the scheme and the fact that it does look a bit like the carbuncle of King's Court in Ramsey, but bigger on Douglas, does that mean that effectively the chair of the planning committee is saying, well, we need this site filled? So, doesn't matter what the design is, we need this site filled. We cannot support it remaining vacant any longer, which will be interesting if the same tack is taken when it comes to sites such as Summerland, areas along the back of Strand Street there, the road that goes down the back from Chester Street through to Drumgold Street. All of these vacant sites. Are we now just going against planning officers' recommendations? This is possibly a conversation you'd like to have. As part of the approval, it was agreed that the commuted sums to affordable housing and public open spaces will be capped at £1.1 million and £473,000 respectively. The scheme will also be subject to a 2-stage review, which would be if no substantial development has taken place within 2 years, and the second when 75% of the residential units have sold. Now, the interesting thing about that is that there's no detail here. Is this going to be a staged construction? Is this one of these things where we've been hoodwinked by development in the past where you only get your things like your cinema and your bus station and everything else once we've sold the residential units? Because the Villiers site has remained vacant for years because it was done in stages and they only did the first stage. Eventually got round, it was Access, Equity and Law, wasn't it? And then they eventually got round to the second stage. And now Tavere are developing the rest of the site in a completely different style and context because there was no guarantee of that development being finished and providing certain services. And you can go around estates on the Isle of Man. I think, is it Lakeside in Onchan that never effectively got its lake? So it's called Lakeside, and it was promised to have a lake and, public open areas, and then they just never built it. They creamed off the profitable bits of the residential properties, and the lake was never built. So all these questions can be raised, but what's your opinion? Do you look forward to a 12-storey multi-purpose development in Douglas being given the go-ahead? Do you think that site should have remained as a bus station for a public purpose, something that it was fulfilling perfectly well for many years? Or would you have liked to have seen a different development on there? Would you have liked to have seen some open space and parking, or just general car parking? What's your thoughts on it now that it's been given the go-ahead? And do you feel that the planning committee has the right to turn around and to the planning officers and say, actually, this might not fit with planning policy, it might not fit with what has been laid out in terms of what the planning officer has to follow, but we are the representatives, the lay people, the representative of the people, and we say we want it, so we overrule you. It's, what's your opinion? I'm sure people will have one. 66 13 68. And also the other big news story, of course, is the Manx Care story that doctors in the Isle of Man have claimed a critical shortfall in inpatient bed capacity at Nobles. It's claimed by the Medical Staff Committee that Manx Care has reduced the number of beds by 46%. 46%, nearly half of the beds have gone in Nobles since Manx Care came into being, and we're giving it more money than ever. However, this is something that the health body disputes. Here we go. Manx Care says the current number of hospital beds is 233. not 168, as the medical staff committee claims. It says it's a reduction of 16.5%, not 46%. Either way, question I put to you is, why are we seeing reduction in beds at all in a care body that's costing us more and more money each year, to the tune of hundreds upon hundreds of millions of pounds? And this was meant to be the arm's length solution that was going to solve the problems. And I think we'll say anecdotally, how many people here say that, care and healthcare on the Isle of Man is something to be proud of? And how many people are going to ask their MHK whether the experiment of Manx Care is one that they would admit is not working? And are we just too stubborn to admit it? Well, all of these I'd love to hear your opinions on. Give me a call, 66 13 68. David Quirk is on. Hello, Quirky. Now, did you have a good weekend?
Yes, I did, actually. Not for football-wise. We lost against Peel. What a team Peel is. But never mind. I'll talk to you another day about football, right? I just want to talk about planning and a quick comment you said about Lakeside.
Yes, Lakeside with no lake.
There's no lake in Lakeside, but there's a lake at the stadium in Elkin Park, where everybody's welcome to come when it opens up at Easter. And can I say to you, maybe there's no lake there, but what we did do years ago there is the green space in between where the kids can play football, and there's a playground in the middle.
But my point was, David, when you say we, were you involved in this planning application at the time? Because my point was that if a developer has promised something but only does the things that makes them money and then doesn't do the other stuff that's the nice to haves, the things that make communities nice. I live in a place where there's nice lakes and there's ducks and things like this. Surely they're wriggling out scot-free, and we're shortchanged as the public, aren't we?
Well, that brings me on to the new planning application, where several questions I would ask is, the new one down in Lord Street there now, came about today, was they're saying that there'll be, we used to call them Section 13 agreements. So potentially there's going to be a capped set aside for first-time buyers of 1.1 million, and then 473,000 retrospectively. Now, my question would be to them is, when's that going to happen? Is that before you start it, is there a small amount going in to the kitty to start something off in somewhere else, or give to local authorities who could develop first-time buyers or local authority homes? I mean, that's the issue I've got. And then the final thing on that, because I'm reading off your Manx Radio little clip here, is that the scheme will be subject to a two-stage review. Oh, what's that about?
Well,
on the development.
Well, this is it. I mean, we'll obviously get the full details of this, but it says if no substantial development has taken place within 2 years, there's going to be a review. I'm not sure whether that's basically saying you've got to start work in 2 years, otherwise you lose your permission, which, I know generally with planning there is always a timescale. And the second is when 75% of the residential units have sold. Now, well, I'm not sure what that actually refers to. Does that mean that that we have to sell 75% of the residential units before we'll invest in the first-time buyers and affordable housing? I'm not sure. That's
the question mark, and it is a big question mark there. It needs to be bottomed out a little bit, because everything like large developments like this, there's always legal documents in it, and the detail, as they always say in Parliament terms or legislative terms, is the devil is always in the detail. And I'd love to find out if anybody or the politicians, and they do listen to Andy and you now, because they're all worried about what's going to go on in what, September, isn't it?
Yeah, September's the general election, yes.
Yeah, so they're all wondering what's going on.
Well, David, I have to ask you then, in your opinion, Chair of the Planning Committee, Rob Collister, MHK, he's your MHK in Onken, he said that he cannot support the Lord Street site remaining vacant any longer, which does come across as that whilst the planning officer recommended refusal of this particular development, but it almost comes across as sounding like we're desperate, and we'll agree to anything as long as you'll just fill the gap, please. And people do almost say this, don't they? It's like, we're so fed up of it being empty, we'll just have anything. And when you're querying as to what these reviews mean, I mean, do you think it's going to be in the public's favour or the developer's favour?
Well, hopefully it'll be in the public's favour or the Isle of Man's favour, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be like, and other colleagues will come on and say the same thing too. Look at the quay there, where they put Kell developments through nightmare regarding Newsome's. That's still not finished as such. And then the other side of the quay by the Trafalgar, all we've got there is a gigantic lake with seawater in it and stinking. And the Trafalgar Hotel, I don't know what merits there would be in trying to keep that. Or should we say sometime in the future, just say, pull it down? It'll be absolutely rotten, you know.
Well, the question is, I mean, are you proposing then that as you mentioned there, the Kell developments, Kell Properties development on North Quay, which has been in limbo with planning for quite a while now, do you feel that maybe it's a case of that, using Rob Collis's words here, if you cannot support a site remaining vacant any longer, that actually we cannot support that place looking the mess it is because it's falling down and awaiting redevelopment. We should just give it the go-ahead. Yeah, no matter what the design is, or whether it's got some heritage value. Likewise, the Trafalgar. It's almost a case of that. If the authorities grind us down enough, we'll just agree to anything.
Well, there'll be an element of in there, and the local authority itself. I was hearing the Douglas Council, Devon Watson, saying the praises of the particular site. But I presume they're only looking at how much rates they're going to get out of that. I'm sorry to be that negative on it there. But like you say, is it going to be like the ones in Strand Street there, where we've got that skeleton of steelwork that when you're on Moxie's car park, you can see it all the time? Never got filled in. Last year there was somebody tinkering about on it. It was never completed. And all these issues where government are supporting individuals or builders or companies to develop stuff. Is there a list? Because in their own portfolio, we've still got M&Co building down there where it was flooded last Friday. The school behind it, which was empty and it's just lying there. We've got the old prison site. We've got two pubs, the QB and the one down by Derby Road. What else have we got? We've got Park Road School. Mm-hmm. Still nothing done there. There's things in the mix that something's going to happen. But if that was the same as the school that's going to be down in Castle Rushen, that's 4 years to do something. Come on, we need to make a more of an effort. Maybe we need to change some of our politicians, and I'll leave it at that.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Lovely to hear from you as always. David Quirk up there in Onken. Will he stand? Speaking of the Lord Street site, thank you to Texter 383 who says, how many car parking spaces does the new plan for Lord Street have and how many are public spaces? My producers fact-checked this, thank you Chris, saying according to the planning application documents for the Lord Street redevelopment, the scheme has 94 car parking spaces in total within the development. That's not many, is it? Those spaces are described in the application as private parking associated with the residential apartments and the development itself, rather than a public car park. So in other words, the planning description refers to private parking facilities, 94 car parking spaces that serve the 85 apartments. 85 apartments. Because of that, the currently approved scheme does not include a large public multi-storey car park, like some earlier proposals for the site actually did. The available information indicates that parking is primarily for residents and building users, rather than open parking for the town centre use. And you can find those details, obviously, on the government's planning portal. So the question is, if you're going to build a cinema and multi-use development, but where are people going to park when they come to it? You tell me. Okay, because it's a bit like when they did up the Villa Marina, and was it Walter Gilby at the time, I think, might have said something along the lines of, we can all just park in Chester Street car park and walk down, and they were going to tart up the back road behind the Sefton and the Gaiety, and of course never did. It does look like the back in the Bronx back there, doesn't it? But yeah, once again, is this an area that's been overlooked? We'll build you a nice big cinema that'll have, I don't know, a couple of hundred people in it, but parking, well, you can just find somewhere else to park. Let's have a look. Ali says, regardless of the merits or otherwise of these plans, the Chair's rationale for passing it is ludicrous. For what it's worth, it's too tall. Thank you, Ali. Yeah, it will be the tallest building, I think, on the Isle of Man, unless anyone proves me wrong. King's Court in Ramsey. And I would love to hear from someone who thinks that King's Court is attractive. Please do give me a call. It'd be great. 66 13 68. But King's Court in Ramsey's 10 stories. I was looking at it yesterday when I was up in the town, and It's a pretty ugly building in a pretty poor condition. It doesn't look attractive, does it? But no, this one will be bigger. It's 12 stories high. Roy B says, typical Manx crabs. We want change, just not the proposed change that would make it project financially viable. We can't live in the past forever. Once again, Roy, yeah, we do want change. The question I give to you, Roy, is that, okay, we can't live in the past forever, but it's the same argument then for let's have a motorway, let's have some flyovers, let's have wind farms everywhere. Just because you want to develop something doesn't mean it's necessarily right. Surely, Roy. And if you agree, I'm sure we can quite happily stick a wind farm in your garden. I'm being a bit facetious there, I realise. Now, Charlie says, will this affect parking in Douglas, as the site was previously used as a makeshift car park? Free parking is in short supply in Douglas, and the government wants to bring in 15,000 more people. Well, yeah, it's, as I've just read out there, there is no parking provision in this at all. So it was a car park. Obviously, it was the bus station before that. Andrea says, I would like to think that they would listen to the planning inspector. Saying he can't support the site being empty any longer is not a good enough reason to approve it. Good point. I mean, there is planning policy set out, really detailed planning policies for everything that we do. Saying I'm supporting it just because I can't support it remaining vacant any longer is Andrea's point here. So maybe Rob Collister can be in touch with us at some point and further justify that based on planning policy rather than possibly a personal feeling or political reason. Big Phil says, get it built. It'll look fantastic. I'm fed up with people holding the island back. Once again, Phil, yeah, you're welcome to your opinion. A bit like Roy, though. It will look fantastic. But where's the parking? Do we want buildings like that on the Isle of Man? Or is it a case that finally someone's putting their money where their mouth is? And do you think 2 years is a good enough reason? Actually, if we want to get it built, should the restrictions have been different? I'm interested in your opinion. Texter 584 says it's 2026. Why are we building a cinema? Everyone just streams movies nowadays. Oh, thank you. 584. I'd like to know who your everyone is. People do stream movies a lot, yes, but people still go to the cinema. Okay, so that's why. You know, cinemas are still a viable business. Text of 144. Rather than building more apartments and cinemas, they need to start thinking about the younger generation. There is nothing for them to do. Ah, that old chestnut. Well, yeah. What would you like to see them build that the younger generation would want to go to, as opposed to what the more mature generation think that young people want to do? Text to 648. A brownfield development grant of 25% of building cost is effectively a gift with no long-term return. In my opinion, the government should just take control of the ownership of the land the development is built on, so it owns and controls the ground rent and receives a return on investment for years to come. That's an interesting point. I mean, we do have the Manx Development Corporation, of course, which is another arm's length organisation of government that's just on the nurses' home up there, and they would probably argue that the brownfield development grant of 25% of build cost is effectively a grant to. It's like an economic stimulus, isn't it? So there's lots of things the government spend a lot of money on and don't get a direct return on investment. I use the TT as a grand example. They spend a lot of money on it, and the return on investment most of the time, or what's the large return on investment, is the wider economic benefit of the TT. You know, the 40-odd million pounds that is lauded every year, pretty much at the same time. It's very well timed, that. When everyone's fed up with the fact that we can't move in traffic and businesses have had to be shut around the TT, and then we get told how much it's worth to us, it's not direct into the exchequer. It's an economic benefit, so I can see where they come from that. Big John in Ramsey, Big Green John. John, I'd love you to ring in sometime. That would be quite nice. But he does ring in about the environment quite regularly. He texts in, about the environment quite regularly. It's all very well for Manx-born celebrities to oppose wind farms. I think this is Samantha Barks opposing the wind farms, wasn't it? But working-class people on the Isle of Man need cheaper and more sustainable energy. Wind energy must go ahead for many reasons. Thank you, Big John in Ramsey. I did actually have a friend of mine ring me last night because she'd been seeing all the hoo-ha on social media about the possibility of the offshore wind farm cable coming in at Groudle. And there was a lot of scaremongering, which is usual social media. People make stuff up without any facts. And with my relationship at Groudle Railway, she was saying, well, what is the fact? And they were very different to what people were scaremongering on social media. So you do have to be very, very careful, whether you're on one side of the argument or the other, not to just make stuff up in order to try and justify your side of the argument, because quite frankly, that will mean that your argument will fall flat, of course, when it comes up against fact and reality. So thank you, Big John in Ramsey. And in healthcare, Texter 169 says, can both parties be asked to clarify the divergence in their figures for available inpatient beds? Whose figures are correct? Well, we've asked those questions, and, the answers we've got are the ones that we're giving you currently in terms of Nobles. I can tell you that Manx Care has stated that the current number of hospital beds is 233. And the Medical Staff Committee has stated that they say it's 168, both of which are a reduction since Manx Care took over. Manx Care say there's a 16.5% reduction, and the Medical Staff Committee say it's a 46% reduction. Okay, so I hope that answers that question for you. Stephen's on the line, wanting to talk planning permission. Hello, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Andy, Alex, and good afternoon, listeners. Yes, I sadly, Mr. Collister has a lot of form for this. He seems to ignore the valid points that are made, and he ignores the planning guidelines that are set down. And I wonder, is this going to mean that on other applications, the applicant can say, well, you've already ignored guidelines on other planning applications. Why can't my application be? Why can't the guidelines be ignored on mine? And I don't think we mustn't forget that this application will receive approximately £16 million. Pose the question.
Sorry, Stephen, you broke up there. You broke up there when you said £16 million. Where's that figure coming from?
That is the direct grant that the applicant can apply for over the cost of the development.
Right.
It was reported on one of your news articles, so you can fact check it.
Yep.
It's not something I've made. I think it was actually 15.8 million. I think something like that.
So that's the maximum amount they're applicable to be able to actually apply for from the grant. Yeah.
I believe so. That is a substantial sum, and what I find peculiar, Alex and listeners, is we keep on getting told that these are brownfield sites, and the only way that they can proceed is by way of large grant aid from Treasury. So is that site down there a brownfield site, which is in a prime site within Douglas Town? Is the one in other locations, are they really brownfield sites? Or is it just that the economic situation of the island is in the doldrums, as I think has been reported before, that our economy shrank? And I just posed this second question is, why can't, I think it was withdrawn in 2013 for ordinary households who may want to carry out large-scale renovations or repairs to their properties, grant aid has been withdrawn from them. So it's double standards. Is it crony capitalism on some of these projects? And is it the economy of the island is certainly not good? Of course, nobody's going to accept that in an election year. But these are other big questions, and I'm just saddened that it's been the planning guidelines have been ignored on this occasion.
Do you feel, Stephen, that in terms of Rob Collister's statement that he cannot support the Lord Street site remaining vacant any longer, that this almost can set a precedent now? So if you were a developer or even a private individual, you'll come along and say, well, there's precedent for this, and if you had a deep enough pocket, you could get some very well-trained lawyer to come up with a case that actually, whilst I'm breaking every planning policy in the book on my application, you should allow this to go through, for example.
Oh, absolutely. I think that Rob Collister should resign his position for merely saying I'm fed up because it's not been developed and is ignoring the policy guidelines. I think that's disgraceful reason for approving this particular application. And if it was another developer who uses this same reasoning, how on earth can the planning committee refuse other applications simply because they want to get it developed? It's not. The only reason is because the economic situation of the island is not good, and it is being carried on by virtue of using our reserves. It's not a sufficient reason. No, he should have had the ability to say, I'm sorry, it doesn't follow the guidelines as laid down by Tynwald, and consequently, I reluctantly cannot approve it. He is the chair, after all, and you would think that the chair, of all people, maybe not the lay members, but the chair, who's the political member, should have abided by the guidelines.
Okay, Stephen, and obviously, if Rob Cullis is listening, the phone lines are there, 66 13 68. If you want to come and defend the statement that he couldn't support the site remaining vacant any longer. Stephen, final question for you then. In terms of, you mentioned there about the development grant, the Brownfield Development Grant, and we've seen a number of projects come to fruition for that. There is the Villiers site, the Dandara site on the old E.B. Christian's garage site down there by Tesco. There is now one's reported for the metal skeleton, as we affectionately call it, on the old Griddle site there. Do you feel that if I'm cynical and I was a developer and I'm sitting there going, well, I know I'm going to make money from this, but if I hang on long enough, the government will give me some money at the end of my project to make it a bit cheaper so I can increase my profit margins? Do you almost feel that by trying to do the good thing and incentivise building, that actually we're just going to end up being a bit of a soft touch, and the developers will sit there waiting, going, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll wait until you offer me some money?
Well, it certainly does appear that, and if the difference between substantial sums of money being given to develop a site and not getting substantial sums of money to develop it, what would you do? It still grieves me, and I'm sure it grieves a lot of other people, that single, small people who may be struggling to raise the money to maybe renew the roof or have a rewire in their homes. After all, they talk about the number of unused and vacant properties. Well, the number of vacant properties, if there were 16 million, let's just use this amount, to be spread around a number of applicants of single people, of single property owners, in order to maybe lived in or not lived in order to bring these properties back into use or to improve them, could easily equal more properties brought back into use than we're going to get out of this development.
And the other interesting thing is, Stephen, of course, if you have, we have a number of registered buildings on the Isle of Man. We don't have listed building status on the Isle of Man, but we have registered buildings. So people who've got buildings that have historical and social value and cultural value, there's no grant scheme in order to maintain those, is there? So a lot of people who own listed buildings, who we might want to have those listed buildings kept. Because they have some importance in Manx history, culture, and society. There's no grants to say, well, actually, you've got to keep them in good nick. You can just let them rot, can't you?
Well, I think you have to do as much as you can do. But why is it that large developers with what is euphemistically called brownfield sites, why can they get large sums of money given to them just simply by declaring it a brownfield site and not a prime site, get this money, and yet individual property owners who may own or live within conservation areas get nothing? It seems to be unequal and unfair, and some of the questioning you hear in Tynwald and House of Keys about particular questions, I would have thought this is an important subject for Keys to debate, but these things never seem to get debated, only on Mannin Line. It's astounding, really.
Okay, Stephen. Well, it's a very good point and a very good question. If politicians are listening, maybe, you need to ask that question that Stephen is posing there within Keys or Tynwald. Okay, how is it that we're giving big sums of money to developers, yet the average Joe and Josephine on the street, as it were, can't get money in terms of property upgrades and maintaining things like, as I mentioned, listed buildings. You have to maintain them to a certain degree. You can't just demolish them. Yet there's no assistance for you, but there's possibly an assistance for a developer to build a big, a big residential apartment block or something like that. Thank you, Stephen, for that. Text to 666 says, have all the new flats in Williston been allocated? We've done a bit of digging. The latest confirmed information is that the new Williston apartment block contains 48 two-bedroom flats. It's built for Douglas City Council as part of their public housing sector stock. According to the project details, it was designed specifically for social housing tenants on the council waiting list, but there's no publicly confirmed statement that all 48 flats have been fully allocated yet. In council reporting about the development, the flats were described as being allocated through the normal public sector housing waiting list system, which prioritises applicants based on housing needs. So there we go. That's the latest information we've got on that. In a moment, we're going to be having a bit of a chinwag with Joy, who wants to hold government to account for overspending.
Michelle Hayward and Anne Corlett have recently returned from the annual Commonwealth Women's Parliamentary Conference. It's a sad reflection of the world we live in that it is still felt necessary to hold such events, but unlike the Isle of Man, most parliaments around the world continue to be male-dominated. Find out why women continue to struggle to get equal representation on Agenda this evening at 5:30pm on Manx Radio with Amy Griffiths. Are women unfairly targeted in social media just because they are women? Why is it so hard to break down centuries-old prejudices? And how have the women fared in this more equal House of Keys?
For the doze you deserve, it's Big Bed Month at Lifestyle Furniture. Get more space for your snooze with a king-size bed for the price of a double. Includes luxury brands Harrison Spinks, Enchanted House, K-Med and more. Plus, we'll give you a free pair of pillows and mattress protector with every purchase. Dream bigger with Big Bed Month at Lifestyle Furniture. Visit us at Snugborough Trading Estate, Union Mills. Open 7 days a week. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, I don't believe it.
Don't believe what?
A small stone just flew off and shattered the conservatory window.
Oh, no problem. I'll call out Manx Glass and Glazing.
Can they fix it?
Yeah, Mum's glass shattered and they soon replaced it.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. Visit Snugborough Trading Estate for all your glazing supplies and repairs, including broken or failed double glazed units, along with good old-fashioned customer service and product knowledge.
Manx Glass and Glazing. You're smashing.
Construction waste today.
Tells recycle for another day.
A builder skip or two.
Tells skips will bring to you.
Need quality Type 1 stone for your building or contracting job? Then contact Tells with no minimum order for collection or delivery. Call 677 137. Visit Tells Limited in Snugborough or find Tells Limited on Facebook.
Skips are what they do.
We're the guys that hire one to you.
Call Tells Skips today.
677 137.
EVF, fueling the island and fueling you. With a great range of fresh foods and everyday essentials at our filling stations. And always great offers too. Ellen Mannin Fuels.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
Okay, it's 20 to 1. Do get in touch on the phone line, 66 13 68. Thank you to S, who messaged in saying, recently I messaged about the questionnaire on making paying for care fairer. Oh, yes, I think we dealt with this last week, didn't we, about paying for elderly care. I forgot to say that apparently 93% of respondents wanted change, so it's very much supported. Presumably the other 7% are due to get it for free. I'm not sure of that, but it's something that many families live in dread of, and that should not be happening. Thank you, S. Yes, Claire Christian, MHK, the health minister, if you're listening. Apparently this was going to be coming back to Tynwald before the end of this administration, so we've not got long, only till July, about this health and social care questionnaire as to how we were going to address the funding of elderly care. So we wait with bated breath, as has been Joy on the line. Hello, Joy. How are you?
Hello, Alex. How are you?
I'm not good. So bad.
Good. I would like to know, when is any one of the MHKs or anyone who comes up with these, somebody must think of a wonderful idea in the first place, such as Liverpool Landing Stage, the halfway horse trams, Douglas Prom, 10-metre wide pavements, etc., reducing parking. Is anybody, I mean, none of it ever runs true to cost. You know, they all run over budget. If you were to build a shed in your back garden and somebody came and said, I'll build that for £1,000, and then when they came and they'd finished it and they said, we want £5,000, would you pay it?
No.
No, but the Isle of Man government do. Every time. I mean, they could have built Liverpool terminal building, whatever, apparently for somewhere in the region of half the price over the other side of the river. Why does it need to go to Liverpool? It would be much easier to get out of Birkenhead, or where we have sailed to Birkenhead, as you know. But what gets me is nobody is ever held to account for things running over budget.
Well, I mean, Joy, in terms of holding politicians to account, you're right. In terms of the civil service, and I think, you know, the example you've given there, the Liverpool ferry terminal, were originally budgeted at 18 million and is now, according to some of the discussions in Tynwald, well over 100 million, although they won't confirm the total figure. If you believe conspiracy theories, they think it's been held until after the election because it's just so unpopular a figure. But that, of course, was done at officer level. In terms of the minister, that really, if we're holding them to account, do you turn around to your MHKs before they come asking for your vote and say, actually, you know, you don't deserve this job because you are not, you're not taking account for this? We get the usual phrase, don't we? Lessons have been learned.
Yes. What lessons have been learned? I mean, Douglas Prom, how long has that taken? It's breaking up now in places, and nobody seems to say, you know, well, this is shoddy workmanship, come back and fix it.
That's interesting, actually, because that you bring up Douglas Promenade there. I was sent in by Charlie a copy of Hansard. I might share this with you and see what you think, Joy, see what your reaction is. This is the infrastructure minister at the time, Ray Harmer, talking in Tynwald about the proposed redevelopment of Douglas Promenade. And I'll read you a section of his speech here. The redevelopment of Douglas Promenade has been debated for many years, and I believe that now is time to grasp the nettle. The department is seeking funding for a scheme that will benefit the island for generations to come. It refers to the programme for government at the time. He says that major reconstruction work last undertaken on Douglas Promenade in the 1930s, and the department has recently carried out temporary remedial work. It says that the promenade is a visitor's first impression of the island when disembarking from a ferry or cruise liner and is regarded as the gateway to the island, and there's a perception amongst major businesses on the island that the neglected state of the infrastructure is acting as a brake on investment. But it says here that the proposal will improve the surface quality on the carriageway and some of the footways. It will improve the efficiency and flow of traffic along the length of the promenade. It will improve the aesthetic appearance of the promenade and restate its prominence as a gateway to the Isle of Man. And it will last 40 years, 40, without the need for further significant construction. So 40 years, apparently. Is that Joy?
Hasn't lasted 40 months, has it?
I'd say it maybe lasts more than 40 months, but not much more. I mean, what do you?
Not a lot more.
No. What do you feel needs to be done then? Because something practically needs to be done. Because we can keep throwing money at it, but that's not the answer, is it?
You can throw a word like practical in there for a start. Why do we need sort of 20-metre pavements outside the Gaiety? You know, I mean, all it's done is reduce the amount of available car parking spaces.
Now
Nobody ever sits there.
Now you'd argue, you see, that outside the Gaiety, you could say because it's nice. It's created something that's maybe nice in a public area, in a cultural quarter. So how do you balance the fact that we could turn everywhere into a car park on a road? So playing devil's advocate, isn't it nice to have nice things?
It is nice to have nice things, but it's nice to be able to park somewhere to go and have nice things.
Yep, okay, I'll take your point on that one. Okay, Joy, well, thank you very much for your call. It's been lovely chatting to you. So, yeah, Joy's got a point. How do you ever hold politicians to account? Because there is always an element of the fact that, well, it's before my time, isn't it, sort of thing. Let's have a look. Howard's been waiting patiently. Hello, Howard, how are you?
Hello, Alex. No, just something that brought to mind the other day. I was driving down the south of the island, and just at Gamsey, before you would take the turn to go into Port St Mary and split to go into Port Erin, there's the signs there, Port St Mary, 20 mile an hour, and they're quite, how can I say, substantial in so much that you can't miss them when you're driving down. It gives the impression that Port St Mary, I didn't go into there, I went down to Port Erin, it gives the impression that Port St Mary is a 20 mile an hour zone. But now that Tim Krukall has paused the 20 mile an hour debate and the implementation, we now have somewhere in the region of £500,000 worth of 20 mile an hour signs and poles and various other bits and pieces to go with it. What do they plan to do with that? Because that £500,000 could have been used on various parts of the island to repair. And also they had employed, or the minister at the time employed contractors to put up poles and rectify where they'd put them up incorrectly. What was the cost of that? There's nothing coming out of this debate, only that it's been paused. There should be some real-time information as to what is going to happen to all those poles. Are they just going to be left like the tram lines to deteriorate, and the signs? And what was the costings for the company or companies who was erecting the poles in readiness for the 20 mile an hour implementation?
Now, the question is, Howard, if I'm putting my cynical hat on for the moment, which normally, if you look back through the wonderful world of politics or a big fan of Yes Prime Minister, cynicism seems to be the way to go with the way that governments and officers act. Do you feel that the pause is just a case of we're pausing it now to be a bit populist in the run-up to the general election, and then we'll implement it anyway after the general election when we can get away with doing something unpopular? Because the civil service are very good at just sort of kicking it into the long grass and biding their time, aren't they?
Yes, my sentiment entirely. But the people who's coming around MHKs, if people ask the MHKs what their views are, and they find that these views are anti-20 mile an hour, as it has been, people were vehemently against it. It was something that was going to be implemented across the island, basically, gradually or rapidly. And Anne Crane, when she wanted it, there was a sensible approach around the schools. We only have to look at QEG and where places like that, where it needs to be, not across the board, which is the civil service. They couldn't get their 50 mile an hour limit, so now they think, well, they spat their dummies out and said, we'll make it 20 mile an hour. But going back to what that lady was saying about the government costs, the Liverpool landing stage. Now, it has been said that was an open-ended contract and add-ons. And if you breach any contract, the add-ons, they are horrendous. And this is where probably the cost has gone up from the original 18 million, 20 million, up to what they're talking now, 100 million plus. And they're having to pursue the companies through lawyers, which is not cheap, for the return of the money. So I noticed when the last election and afterwards, there was an awful lot of the top guns within the civil service decided to take early retirement. And they've been very, very quiet since. But the problems still continue, and they will continue until there is an inquiry into them.
Okay, yeah, it's a very good point, Howard. That when it comes to the issues, when it comes to things like what we're promised and the services, it's all very quiet, isn't it? We've tried to get the officers of the DOI on here, Emily Curfew, Jeff Robinson. We've tried to get the minister on here, currently Tim Krukall, and Basically, you can't see tumbleweed on radio, can you? The questions are, why are these things not being done? Why is it costing so much money? What is happening with the 20 mile an hour speed limit? If you have a child who does any sports at the NSC or the Bowl, or you go to see FC Isle of Man and see the huge amount of traffic congestion in that area that has been directly caused by the works the DOI undertook to give us a whopping great big cycle lane over Pulrose Bridge, which I know I cycle through there. I don't require a cycle lane that wide, but it means it's only a single file traffic now heading into town. So at what is effectively our national stadium, we decided to block up the road further. When it's not on a public transport route, all in the sake of something that actually we spent a lot of money on for what purpose? And there was no accountability for it. What is the solution to this? If you have any ideas, please get in touch, 66 13 68. Betty's been on and wants to talk about Manx Care. Hello, Betty.
Hi, I don't know if this will work because my line keeps breaking up. Okay. But I don't think that we're having as good a service now as we did 5 years ago. People seem to have to wait much longer for doctor's appointments, and we have to wait hours in the hospital in Nobles. And if you have an appointment with a consultant, even if it's marked urgent, you have to wait maybe 7 months or more.
I mean, what do you think the cause of this is, Betty? Why are things going so wrong?
I don't know, really. I was hoping you might have some ideas.
Me personally, no. I mean, we did hear in the news there that Theresa Cope was talking about a number of the issues that have caused bed shortages. But the thing that struck me was when she said that the A&E department isn't big enough. So my question that comes out of that is, what are you doing about it? Are we building a bigger one? Are we proposing a bigger one? Don't give me the problem. What are your solutions? And they don't seem to be coming up with solutions, do they?
No, and we seem to be giving them more money and not getting much for it.
Well, we will keep asking the question, Betty, and see. I mean, from your perspective, do you think that Manx Care is a setup that's working, or do you prefer the idea of when it was completely controlled through the Department of Health?
Somehow, I don't think it's working. I don't know whether it was better before, that's all I know, but whether it would be better with the Department of Health again, I don't know either.
Okay. Well, lovely. Thank you, Betty. Thanks for raising that with us. Yeah, I think Betty speaks a similar opinion to a lot of people, actually, on the island when it comes to, you hear anecdotally about how they feel that healthcare is not getting better with Manx Care, but the service is getting worse. So what's the solution? I don't know. Thank you very much to Greg, who's been on WhatsApp. He left us a voice note.
Yeah, an interesting one. We just mentioned on the Mannin Line about protected buildings. The Quarterbridge pub is a protected building, and it must be kept as a pub. Currently, the Heron and Brindley are renting it off leasing it off the government. Like I said, I don't think it's been open the best part of 3 years. And I've contacted the government multiple times to raise interest in leasing it, and I just get snubbed off every time. Most recent one, I got an email to say it's not available, but your interest has been noted, which I think is a bit scandalous, really. But being life on the island, I suppose.
Okay, thank you, Greg, for that. Yes, the Quarterbridge pub, from memory, it was going to feature in the centre of the massive redevelopment, wasn't it, of Quarterbridge. It was going to be a huge oval about, as it were, that was proposed. And the TT line would still stay on one side, but the traffic roundabout would effectively go around the other side of the Quarterbridge pub, whilst maintaining that historic building. I would imagine it's owned by the DOI Properties Division. And what Greg is saying there, he's trying to lease it and he's been stonewalled. So it just sits there, rotted, in his opinion. So, why are we not reaching out? Is it a case of we're just a bit power mad? Okay. No, it's my property. Well, I don't want you to have anything to do with it. Or maybe should we be being a bit more proactive? I don't know. But if anyone knows any more information on that, please do get in touch with us. Right, I've got a couple of minutes left, and Bonzo is on Talking Planning. Hello, Bonzo.
Hello, yes, and Alex, you can only reach out on Motown and Stax records.
Thank you very much. Very good line.
Right,
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. Let's clarify that one. Yes, big tall buildings in the middle of Douglas that are 12 stories. You know how there's a yes minister for everything?
Oh, yes, there's definitely a yes minister for everything, yes.
There's a yes minister for this one.
Oh, remind me.
It's in Series 2, and it's called The Quality of Life. And it's about the vague upper-class merchant bank chairman, Sir Gerald Glaister, his name is, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants more stories on top of his headquarters because it's prestigious, and he doesn't see why the planning people are getting in the way.
And remind us what the outcome of that, because I'm pretty sure he got his way. Was it?
He got his way, yes.
I'll tell you what. It was was it Gladesbrook or something like this? I remember his name.
Gladesbrook, yes.
That's it. Yes.
Sir Gerald Gladesbrook, yes, who was Slarty Bartfast in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That was him, yeah.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. Yes, he got his way because he found another space for the children's petting farm.
Oh yes. So what you're saying is that effectively, yes, Prime Minister is a good guide to going and seeing how politics works.
Oh, yes, Minister, yes. I mean, yes, Minister and yes, Prime Minister, there's one for everything.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bonzo. I shall go and revisit that episode tonight just to make myself smile. Thank you very much for all your texts and also all your phone calls this afternoon. We do read each and every individual one of them, and if I haven't had time to read them out today, I will keep them in the file for tomorrow. Of course, you can get in touch with Mannin Line out of hours. Email manninline@manxradio.com. Thank you very much to my producer and fact-checker, Chris Quirk. Christy D is up next at 1 to 3. I'll be back tomorrow at midday. Have a wonderful Monday afternoon. Take care. Ta-da.